Raider Nation, what is going on? Today we're going to be talking about the Seahawks way, because that's what the Raiders apparently be turning into right now, as there are now a lot of speculation that Pete Carroll, who is making a lot of the big decisions here with John Spytek and the Raiders, is very much interested in a couple of players who were very long time Seahawks players. And we're talking about Tyler Lockett and Bobby Wagner. Now, Tyler Lockett is an unrestricted free agent. However, Bobby Wagner is not. He just re-signed a one-year deal worth $9 million with $8 million guaranteed to the Washington Commanders. He is 34 years old and Tyler Lockett is 32. The Raiders are now Pete Carroll's team. He's put his stamp on the Raiders by going out and bringing his quarterback in with a trade from the Seattle Seahawks and grabbing Geno Smith. And we're going to talk about Geno Smith a little bit today and his contract situation, which could be great for the Raiders or it could be a disaster for the Raiders. So we're going to get into that and more, plus all of these other players on today's episode of the Raider D Podcast. Before we get into today's video, let's talk about the Xbot Go Chameleon, the revolutionary AI robotic cameraman that is absolutely changing the game. Guys, if you want to record your kids' sporting events or your own, maybe you fancy yourself a little bit of a savant out there on the court, you can absolutely do it with the Xbot Go Chameleon. It has follow me mode. It has the ability to track the jersey number. It can track the ball. It is absolutely crazy what this thing can do, and it comes with the ability to record in 4K 60 FPS. Comes with the ability to live stream the game for hours on end with an insane 8-hour battery life of continuous recording. And yes, it comes with an app, and the app is 100% free. It comes with different types of record modes: soccer, ice hockey, tennis, football, basketball, you name it, they got it. It has the follow me mode, the accurate player tracking. It has capture, edit, share, again, all on their app, which is 100% free. You get 20 gigs of space on their cloud, and they don't even charge you for it. The Xbot Chameleon is absolutely changing the game and how we go about recording. Long gone are the days of you having to hold your smartphone up for hours on end to record your kids' games. You just set it and forget it. Lock onto your kid or lock onto the ball, and you can now sit back and enjoy the game and let the Xbot Go Chameleon, super robotic, super smart AI gimbal, do all the work for you. It has 360 degrees of motion, 8 hours of battery. Guys, you cannot pass up on this. Go and get yourself an Xbot Go Chameleon today. And oh, by the way, it also connects to your Apple smartwatch, or you can use the smart remote. Link is down in the description. Thanks, Xbot Go, for being a sponsor of the Raider D Podcast. So let's start out with Tyler Lockett. Listen, Tyler Lockett, longtime Seattle Seahawks. He was drafted by the Seahawks and played his entire career there until just recently, where he was released from the Seahawks and is now an unrestricted free agent. His production last year was his worst pretty much since coming into the NFL, with only 600 yards and only 2 touchdowns. But Tyler Lockett is still one of the best possession receivers in the NFL when he is fully healthy and when he has a good system around him. But let's be honest, when Pete Carroll was forced to step down as the head coach and they had new offensive coordinator, new head coach, the Seattle Seahawks suffered on offense a bit. They also suffered on defense quite a bit last year as well. So the entire team had a down year, right? Even, Geno Smith had a 70% completion rate, which was great, but his overall production wasn't as great as he's had in past years, especially his Pro Bowl years under Pete Carroll. And so I'm going to go ahead and say every player that was with the Seahawks last year, if they had a down year last year, I'm just chopping it up to regime change. This kind of does happen from time to time. Sometimes a team has a down year after a regime change. And I think that that's what happened. So can Tyler Lockett come in and still be a highly productive wide receiver and add a ton of depth to the wide receiver core, especially with his experience? Absolutely, right? And I think that if you went out and get him, this doesn't preclude the Raiders from drafting wide receivers. It doesn't preclude drafting Tet McMillan out of Arizona at pick number 6, because he's going to be your true X wide receiver if you draft him. And Tyler Lockett, being a 32-year-old wide receiver, you're probably going to sign him on a 1 or maybe a 2-year deal, but I doubt a 2-year deal. You'd probably bring him in on a 1-year deal worth at least $8 or $9 million. And he's going to be that humble, leadership style veteran wide receiver that is all about team. Now, we had a guy who was the veteran wide receiver. We had a guy who often touted himself as being the best wide receiver in the NFL. And he got traded to the New York Jets, and that turned out into a disaster, and he's now an unrestricted free agent. Here's the contrast between the two. I think if I were looking at the two, which one is a better wide receiver still today, even though they're basically the same age, I would say Davante Adams is still the pure better wide receiver. However, with that being said, I think Tyler Lockett is a much better leader in the locker room. I think he's much more about team than his own legacy. He's already built his legacy. He's already got his Super Bowl. And from all the resources that I was able to read through about Tyler Lockett, the team loves him. All of his teammates absolutely love him. He is a great locker room guy. So I do think that it makes absolute sense. Now listen, I know, just like when McDaniels came here, it was, oh, they're bringing the Patriot way here. And now Pete Carroll brings Geno Smith and then probably going to bring in Tyler Lockett. Now it's the Seahawk way, right? Listen, with every veteran coach that went from one NFL team to another, that's going to be the case. They're going to want to bring in guys that they're familiar with because they don't want to take big chances. Listen, Pete Carroll is 73 years old, 74 here soon. He needs to win now, right? I mean, this guy, he's on a 3-year with a 4th-year option contract with the Raiders. Do you see him being a head coach at 80, 81, 82 years old? Probably not. This is probably his last stint, and like he's made it very clear, he doesn't have time for a 2 to 3 to 4 year build out of a team. He needs to win now. And so bringing in Geno Smith was a very safe bet. Geno Smith's going to win you a bunch of games. Geno Smith, in my opinion, is an automatic upgrade to the entire quarterback room that we have right now because he's an accurate quarterback. He is a playmaker quarterback, and he can really help you out in the run game because he's got legs. Even though he's 34 years old, the dude can still get out of the pocket and he can still run, and you can design quarterback runs for him, though you're not going to do that as much as maybe he did, 5 years ago. But with that, he brings that other dynamic. And so bringing Tyler Lockett is another safe bet because you could go out, and reports have said that the Raiders have reached out to, Davante Adams' camp, and there is some interest in bringing Davante back, but it's not for what Davante is going to get paid. And so I don't think Davante comes back to the Raiders, especially now that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be here. I think Davante is probably going to end up with the 49ers, and that's just it. So best of luck to you, Davante, in the rest of your career. I think that Tyler Lockett will be a Raider here in just a few days. As soon as the free agency opens up, they can get the contract on Monday and then get it signed on Wednesday. Tyler Lockett will be in the silver and black, and I think it's a great pickup. Even if you only get 600 to 900 yards out of Tyler Lockett and a half a dozen touchdowns, that is still pretty darn good for what you're probably going to pay him, which isn't going to be a whole lot. So let's talk also about Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner, who just re-signed with the Washington Commanders, according to insider reports, the Raiders really want to bring Bobby in to basically replace Robert Spillane, who they are probably going to end up letting out into the free agency. Robert Spillane wants more money than what the Raiders are willing to give. And so the Raiders need a linebacker immediately a veteran guy, and a future Hall of Famer. And so the Raiders are looking at trading possibly the other third round pick that we have. So we would have no third round pick to the Washington Commanders for Bobby Wagner. Again, he's only there on a $9 million deal. Doesn't really cost us that much. And you bring in a Hall of Fame leader like Bobby Wagner, who's still very productive. Despite him being 34 years old, the dude is very, very productive. And this is why the Commanders re-signed him to a one-year deal. This is probably his last hurrah. You don't see linebackers reaching 35, 36, 37 years old in the NFL. The body just can't take it anymore. But I think that if the Raiders were to give up a third-round pick, maybe a fourth-round pick for Bobby Wagner, which I would prefer a fourth-round pick for Bobby Wagner than our other third, because, again, you can still get a star player in the third round. I think I would be okay with that. I'd be okay with that. If you know that you're not going to be able to get Spillane re-signed, if you're just too far apart on the contract negotiation, and you know that he's probably going to hit the free agency, then yes, it makes sense to go ahead and trade for a Bobby Wagner. And so now you have on the defense, you have a guy who understands Pete Carroll through and through, understands his philosophy, understands the type of defense that he wants to implement, and can help build that out and be that veteran leader out there. And we do have a couple of young linebackers as well that, you know, they're going to be going into their second year with the Raiders. And so I would like to see what they're going to be able to do. Amari Ferrari. I would love to see what Amari Ferrari Gainer can do, right? You bring in Bobby Wagner on a one-year deal. You help him to just kind of be that solidifying force out there on the defense. He can be your Mike defender out there. He can be the captain of the ship on the defense for you, and bring these young guys up and get them up to speed for next season. And so I love it. I would not be opposed to the Raiders trading for Bobby Wagner. If it happens, that would be fantastic. I think Bobby's still got a lot left in the tank, and you're bringing in a Hall of Famer linebacker to the Raiders. Just makes a lot of sense for the Raiders if, and I say if, you're not able to get Spillane re-signed to the Raiders. If you do re-sign Spillane, I don't think there's a need in trading away any picks for Bobby Wagner, because Spillane's going to be your starter, and the dude is an absolute stud. Guys, if you love the Raiders and you really enjoy all the content that I'd be bringing to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 12,000 subscribers, and I appreciate each and every single one of you. I will see you guys in the next video.